Hey, this is Sim from the edit room. As I was editing the video, I realized that we forgot to really mention how you can get this book. So I just met up with Scott recently, and he gave me his book. You can buy it in the link description below.
All right. Hey there, everybody. This is Ian,
This is Sim.
and we are here today to talk about the psychology behind professional development. Sim, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
A lot of things happen in you.
yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I'm
Good.
I'm, I'm feeling very excited. Really excited about today's guest. I've known him for a few years,
There you
give
go.
or take. Like, is it? I want to say around a decade, maybe a little bit more than that, about 10, 15 years. And I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to introduce him as Scott Doyne. But what Scott is going to talk about, he has a lot of information. I really enjoy talking with him because of his background, because of his forward thinking about certain topics, about his books that he has published, how he got to those points, his career pivot. It's just a wealth of knowledge and information that I just really enjoy just talking about these items and just so many things. So, Scott, how are you doing? And thank you so much for being our
Yeah,
guest. Really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yes,
I'm great.
welcome.
It's awesome to be with you guys in this setup. I love the content you put out. And Ian, yeah, we've been friends for a while. So
Yeah,
following each other's journeys. And
yeah,
in this chapter for me, I think echoes a lot of what I know Ian did in his career, which is helping people. And so
yeah.
I
Mhm.
found a lot of purpose in that, just sort of escalating that opportunity, that privilege to be in people's lives and see if I can help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely tremendous, and I think what's very inspiring is your career journey, right? I mean, tell us a little bit about where you are right now compared to where you were, and how you actually got here.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because the last few years I have been a certified career coach. This is what I'm doing. And for the people that have met me in those few years, they have no idea necessarily that for 25 years I worked in the sports business. They know me as Coach Scott. And
Yeah.
so there is an intersection there, which I think has some additional value. But yeah, that first 25 years, I studied sports management as an undergrad at the University of Michigan. I ended up working in
That's
sports TV.
Ann Arbor, right? I gotta
Ann
say go
Arbor,
blue. Oh
absolutely.
my
Yep,
gosh.
we say go
Go
blue,
blue.
and,
My wife went there. I don't know if we
I met
Yeah,
my wife there.
met
Oh
30
my,
years later,
that's
we're still
incredible.
together, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning. Worked in sports TV production, ended up going back to business school here in Atlanta at Emory University. Got
Awesome.
into Turner Broadcasting, which is now Warner Brothers Discovery. And I was in that sports division for
yeah,
20 years. So I ran digital products, including NASCAR.com, NBA.com. I
Wow.
ran a product strategy team. I ran a research and analytics team. It was a dream career, absolutely. But there's
yeah,
a lot of consolidation in that industry. I
Mhm.
felt a layoff coming. And so I was exploring what I wanted to do. And so a lot of that exploration and some magical light bulbs happened that
mm,
by the time I did get laid off, coaching was on my mind. I had a business
Mhm.
plan and I launched a business 3 months later.
I'm curious, Scott, how did you know there was going to be a potential reduction in force? What are some of the signs that you saw?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of signs I didn't see, just to
mm,
be honest about that. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily see stuff coming. And I have a lot of
Mhm.
clients now that have been laid off and feel an intense amount of surprise and all the emotions.
Yes.
My insight was a good friend of mine at work got let go, and I thought she was untouchable. So
Mhm.
mm,
that was really sort of like, if it can happen to her, it
Right.
will happen to me at some point. We had gone through our second company acquisition. There was
mm,
a lot of
Wow.
change or a lot of layoffs, and I didn't want to believe it was going to be me. And I'm a pretty optimistic, idealistic guy. But
Mhm.
when it happened to her, that was the light bulb. And as I put in my first book, I started a Google Doc that day called My Next Chapter. And that journaling was
wow,
part of the process I used
Yeah.
to figure out what I wanted to do.
It's something
wow,
that I talk with my clients about. Like layoffs are almost a professional trauma because you
mm,
go from something secure to the unknown, and especially when it happens so abruptly, right?
Yeah, and especially if it's something you loved and
mm,
has become part of your identity. And
Yes.
it's a tricky thing when it comes to our professional lives
yeah,
is, when somebody asks, what do you want to be when you grow up? right? That's like
Right.
who you are, is your
Yep.
Yeah.
profession. And there's some challenge there. And I absolutely ascribe to the fact that I was a sports media executive.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
part of who I was, but it's also what I did professionally. It
Mhm.
wasn't my entire persona, I don't think,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm just sort of rewriting history on my perspective now.
Hey,
Wow.
looking back, right? Everything is put into perspective. Like one of the things that I live overseas, and one of the things that I see is that identity to work is not as strong overseas as it is in the
Yeah.
States. So that's something that we may talk about it in the future. But I am so curious, going from the sports executive, right, to my next chapter on Google Docs, right? What were the top 5 things that you've probably written on there?
Yeah, there were 14. I probably can't
Oh,
remember them offhand. It's one of the reasons I write books is like I don't trust my memory. Um, and so I know, working for another sports organization,
Mm,
working for another media company were
of
sort of the
course.
obvious sort of lateral sort of things.
mhm,
Mhm.
Working for a sports league, perhaps. Consulting, if I wanted to have some level of autonomy or independence, which was a goal that sort of grew on me,
Yeah.
consulting in any of those capacities.
mm,
But I also wrote down stuff that I wasn't married to. I just wanted to brainstorm. I'd get some of that
yeah,
stuff out. So
Right.
other passions of mine like travel, was there anything
Mhm.
to that? Nonprofits, I'd given back, and that felt like something coming out of the pandemic. I was thinking a little more purpose driven.
Yeah.
And while coaching per se was not on there, I did have mentoring on there.
mm,
And I didn't
Okay.
know how that could ever be a business. I just knew I loved it. I was invested in it. I'd done it, most of my career. So
Yeah.
I had a handful of things like that that at least got the thoughts flowing.
I love that. I love that brain, like letting your brain process through it and putting it into a list,
Mhm.
right? So as you're working on as a career coach, do you have a niche? Do you have a mission? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say it's evolved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about niche when it comes to how to be a coach and what segment you're in. What's
Right.
in common for me is career transition.
mm,
I
Mhm.
see
mm,
that completely. And it could be at the early stages of your career, it could be mid career, it could be late career,
right.
but I've
Mhm.
just sort of embraced career transition support. There's some leadership coaching and executive coaching in that, but career transition for emerging and executive professionals in sports media and technology. Like if I
Mhm.
were to sort of pull
Mm,
it together, that's it. But the tagline I have for my business right now is your bridge to a new chapter. So I think
mm,
in terms of like a mission,
yeah.
I've always loved taking photos of bridges on vacation for some
Yeah.
reason. And so like, there's metaphors in these things for
There
bridges
is.
for support. It's for connecting people. It's for getting from here to there.
Yeah.
And so like I've just sort of embraced that bridge metaphor
Yeah.
and hope that I can provide that for others.
I love that imagery because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about, we can definitely cross to the other side without a bridge. It's a lot more effort, a lot more time, right? A lot more unknown. But when you have that bridge, it's a lot easier and people develop
It
those
is.
bridges to make things easier. So
It is.
as people get to
Yep.
work with you, right, you're making that process easier essentially.
That's right.
Yep.
And very clearly, the bridge doesn't cross for you. And
Wouldn't
and I
that be
think we
sweet?
agree from what I've seen from your content. I believe in empowerment. I believe in helping people help themselves.
Yes.
And so that comes with tools, frameworks, exercises. It's not lecturing. I'm not telling people exactly what to do or how to do it. There's some
Mhm.
prescriptive things around best practices, of course, but generally I am an ICF certified coach and I believe in
Mhm.
that code of ethics. And I think helping people help themselves is the key to long-term fulfillment
Mm,
and success.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So as we're looking to this bridge, right? Your primary because your first book, you wrote 2 books, right? Your first book was about the oh my gosh, the mid-career transition.
Yeah, midlife. Mhm.
Midlife transition. What defines a midlife transition? Or let's say midlife first.
Yeah, if somebody wants to be mathematical about it, I
Mhm.
framed it 40s to 60s.
Okay.
Maybe it dips into 30s because I
Mhm.
analyzed, life expectancy. I looked at,
Yeah.
how long people work for. And even if you calculate from your working age of 18 till government defined retirement at 60, whatever,
Mhm.
right? There's a frame in there for like what
Right.
mid is. But when you ask people, right, mid feels like 50. Life
Mhm.
expectancy on average is not 100. It's
Yeah.
growing, but
Right.
also life stage can affect this feeling. And then especially now that I've written the book on quarter life, I have people in their 30s asking me, which one am I? It's like, well, I don't
Yeah.
know. What are you going through? And
Yeah.
I do believe there's more in common with transition across different age groups than there is different. I think what's most different about those younger ages is you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And what's different about the older ages, you might have done something pretty specific for a long time. And as one of my friends said to me, I was institutionalized.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
having some open mindedness about what you might try next
Right.
can be harder at that age than the younger age. So there's a little bit of differences, but midlife
Yeah.
for me, I think 40s and 50s is probably the zone for most people that want to pick up that book versus the younger
Okay.
book.
Thank you for clarifying that because midlife for me is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I calculated through the career age, right? So people usually start their career in their 20s, right? So midlife is between 20 to 65, right? It falls into the same
Similar.
group
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
So I think like, okay, that's 40-year span. 40 years in a career.
Yeah.
Can you
It's
believe that?
crazy.
It is. It's a long time. And it also
Yeah.
means what I believe I've proven at some level for my situation,
Mhm.
it's never too late. And
Right.
I
Right.
believe that wholeheartedly now, like I said, for the brand, so to speak, that I have now for maybe some of
Mhm.
my newer clients, I'm Coach Scott. And
Mm.
and that's fine. That is what it is. And
Mhm.
so, it took training, it took investment, it took, honing my skills and getting out there, it took marketing. So, but within a few years, it was possible. And so I do have clients in midlife or mid career, one that just went back to school for mental health
Okay.
Okay.
therapy, one that went to school
Yes.
for anthropology, one that became a welder at a later
Oh,
Mm.
age.
that's
So like people are trying these different things. Some of
right.
those I'll acknowledge are during severance periods, right? This
Mhm.
may be something people don't talk about, but
Yep.
if you are on a longer severance, you might have a gap year.
Mhm.
And how do you
Mhm.
approach that versus people that have
Yeah.
intense urgency, which I
Right.
respect completely? It's like, no, I gotta get a job right now. It's like,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
let's get to work.
Yeah. I want to ask about gap years.
Okay.
All right. Because you're working on this transition side. How do I ask this? Let's see. Gap year. What's your feel? What's your take on taking a gap year?
At what
Doesn't matter
age?
what age.
At any age?
At any
Mm.
age, you define it.
I think the more common practice, which is still not pervasive, is sabbaticals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's real value in taking a break, letting your mind wander, getting some perspective. And maybe, maybe it's a 1 week vacation, maybe it's 2 weeks. But when people come back from those breaks, clients I have,
Mm-hmm.
and I ask them, did you have any new thoughts or epiphanies while you were gone? There's something new that broke through
Yes.
because they weren't necessarily nose to the grindstone for that period of time. Not everybody can
Mm-hmm.
take those vacations. Maybe you find that in meditation or a long walk or a run. But sabbaticals, I think conceptually,
Mm-hmm.
or a gap year, if you want to do something extended, is, that time to let something new penetrate that you can play with, that you can
Right.
experiment. You can try something out with fear of rejection or
Yeah.
failure. It's just, you're just playing around with something different.
I think if you're looking, that is if you are blessed to have a job that allows you, quote unquote, to have a sabbatical.
Mhm.
So for
Absolutely.
those jobs that you don't have that access to a sabbatical, what do you think is like the next best thing for people to kind of maybe reach a certain understanding within themselves, maybe for a change?
Yeah, time management's the hardest part of all of
Yeah,
this, and I'll, if it's okay, I'll talk a little bit more about meditation, and
absolutely.
I don't speak about it from an expert's point of view at all. And I've published my meditation habit. It's 5 to 10 minutes, five times a week, usually walking my dog with an
Mm,
ear pod in. So it's not like this, hour in the dark sitting still necessarily. And I maybe aspire to that. And I'm sure there's additional value. But what I'd challenge people is if you tried it for 5 minutes in whatever setting you have available, How's that experience go for you when you've tried it a few times? Is there a new thought? Is there a new idea? Is there some level of peace or self-awareness that happens that, yeah,
Mm.
you don't have 2 weeks or 3 months off,
Yeah.
but can there be power in 5 minutes of silence?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Scott, like I've been meditating for 20 plus years now,
I'm
and I'm a
jealous.
certified meditation teacher, right?
Oh my gosh. I
And
walked
one of
right
the
into that.
there's a lot I don't share about me. But one of the key components, and I love that you do this, is the meditation does not need to be, sitting in a room, lights off. It can be walking your dog and being present and being mindful, right?
Mhm.
It's so powerful as soon as you say, you know what? I'll have a
Yeah.
meditative experience, right? Running, fantastic, fantastic way. Art, right? Just allowing your mind to wander
Yeah. And I
and then
didn't
finding that
start
peace.
this until I got
Mhm.
laid off. So,
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
of those silver linings is I found it. And before that, for 2 years, I had a biweekly reminder in my Outlook calendar to
Mm.
meditate. Didn't do it once.
Yeah.
It was in my calendar for 2 years before I even tried it. And it wasn't until the layoff that like, okay, well,
Right.
I'll give this thing a shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how it evolved.
And it's working.
I absolutely believe it's working. Not perfect, but
No.
for the goal I
Gotta
have,
be.
which is to be less reactive,
Yes.
I can
Mm.
now, from time to time, catch myself
Hmm.
before I say something or do something, take
Mm.
a deep breath, and then respond instead of react.
I love that. That is like the one of the key components of being in that receptive space, right? And also recognition space. It's like, yep, I received it, I recognized it, I will choose to react as I see fit.
Yeah.
Right? That pause is so important. So I want us to, because even writing, it's so meditative
Uh,
because you have to, at least this is my process. I don't know if this is your process, right? For me, I have to have my headphones in
uh,
and
Mm.
then just zone out, well, or you can say go into a state of flow, right? The
Mm.
meditative flow of just this is it. Forget about everything else.
uh-huh.
What is your process for your writing? Because you've
Yeah.
written two
It's
books already.
Yeah.
I've got a few things that are special for me in terms of what works. First of all, I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
don't feel like writing is a martyrdom sort of thing. I know people struggle with that and have
Mm.
writer's block that's real. I enjoy it, which is one of the reasons I keep doing it. I have had a lot of success on long
Mhm.
international flights, just letting my brain go and
Yeah.
typing
Awesome.
out a bunch of stuff on my phone.
On your
Hours
phone.
of
On your
words.
phone?
Wow.
I switched to an iPad for the last one because it killed my
Yeah.
neck to do it on
Oh
the
my
phone.
gosh.
So that's one thing I have done successfully.
Mm.
Mhm.
Talk about music. So I have different modes. I have different playlists for
Yeah.
different modes I'm in. If I'm writing,
Okay.
it's one playlist. If I'm editing, it's another. And
Yes.
so, location matters for me.
Mhm.
Music matters for me. But
Right.
I also, I have a draft outline usually pretty early. And,
Yeah.
and this even is with my newsletter or my LinkedIn posts. I have a bit of a content plan because I worked in digital media
Mhm.
for so long and I
Of
worked in a
course.
content company and I worked in TV production. So I've always had storytelling in me, but I
Yeah.
also was surrounded by experts. And so I can channel them a little bit. I saw how to create a weekly editorial calendar, a monthly editorial calendar. I know something about branding. So I hit different
Right.
brand notes at different times. So
Mm.
Yeah. You're
I really
leveraging
don't
your
mind the
past
writing,
experiences.
but location and music are actually two
Mhm.
things that work for me.
Can I tell you something? Both of those are triggers. So essentially, it helps our brain ease
Mhm.
into what we're trying to do next.
Mhm.
There's psychological proof that
I
as soon
believe
as
it.
you put this on, so for me, that is a soda, right?
Um,
And some music, like instrumental music.
yeah,
As soon as I hear that, and it has to be a can, as soon as I hear that click,
you're in the
I'm just
mode.
in that trance.
I
Yeah.
love it.
It's so cool.
Wow. Wow.
So, what's your new book,
Okay.
Quarterlife Crisis?
Yeah, so I'll give you the arc a little bit if that's okay, just to put it
Please.
in context. So the midlife book was urgent for me. I wanted to publish it on my 50th birthday. It just
Oh,
felt poetic. I hit that deadline. It created urgency to have a deadline, and I got it out. Now it's about 15, 16 months ago, September of 2024.
Congratulations.
And so that was the first one. But even as I was writing that, I was having thoughts about my early career, and it didn't fit into the midlife book. So I just had separate set of iPhone notes
Yeah.
that I would just like throw some stories into that. I even called it Quarterlife then, Quarterlife,
Great.
and not to scoop myself, but this will be a trilogy at some point because I'm going to do Late Life as my third book. So
Okay.
this is the first podcast I'm even mentioning that on.
Oh my
So
God.
Nice. Congratulations.
I am
Exclusive.
now
I love
on
the
the record
exclusive.
accountable
Love the spoiler.
for, because it's a career crisis series. No matter at
Yeah.
what age, we go through these challenges of pivoting and transitioning. And I can't tell you what that's going to be about, but I knew it was going to be a trilogy when I was writing the first book. So the second book
Mm.
is Gen Z. I have some urgency around that because my kids are in this age range. My kids are 20 22. My oldest is about to graduate from college. I felt some stress from them, but also I teach at Emory. I've always had interns and mentees that are younger employees. And I've always felt this sort of, stress from that generation that's different. And so I wanted to understand it better so I'd be in a position to help. And so in order to understand it, this book is very research based. I did a lot of interviews and I did hundreds of surveys. So I have a lot of data that came back that
Right.
then created the foundation of the book. And essentially, before I did all that writing, I had really bubbled up 8 stress sources and 8 stress relievers. Those 16 topics became my homework assignments when I was writing. It's like, let me just write a bunch on those 16 things, pull from my story, my clients' stories, my students' stories, my mentee stories. I read other books in the space. And then I went and found resources from nonprofits, from individuals, from companies that provide the resources that Gen Z is looking for. And so that way it sort of comes together as this fabric of here's what I'm hearing from you that validates that you are going through a legitimate stress cycle. And it's different than generations before you. And here are some resources that you've been asking for that might help you take one step forward.
I'm gonna ask, and you don't have to. Can you give us one?
Ah, yeah, I will. It became pretty clear actually in terms of what 18 to 25-year-olds is what I sort of captured. What they were asking for, top 3 resources that they would like more access to. One, financial. Financial was throughout. There's a lot of concerns about costs, the misalignment between housing costs and early career
Affordability is a
salaries, right?
big
A lot
issue.
around finance. Second thing is networking, help with networking. And then the third thing is mentors. And I saw an exacerbated stress around those for underrepresented populations. And so whether that's immigrant populations, multicultural populations, those 3 really were strong. And the mentor thing is something I take super seriously and I've done a lot about, but the stories I got to hear from people were really important. I bring those out in the book, which is I've never had a mentor. I heard that a lot. I haven't seen anybody like me in those roles,
Yep.
right? Real challenges that I did not experience growing up that I think is important for everybody to understand and appreciate, and then do what we can to provide those opportunities for people that just don't know what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, as you were talking about it, I'm like, how do people find mentors? Like,
Yeah.
my personal experience, right? I never saw somebody like me in a position of power and influence to, help guide me to whatever destination,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. And the fun part of writing the book is
yeah.
I traced that question back for myself. I
Okay.
forced myself to try to remember
Mm.
who my first mentors were and how did I get them. And some of those, like one of them was a high school teacher.
Okay.
And, that's some of the advice that I interviewed a CEO from a sports organization called Arena Talent. And what she said is it may be people you've worked with before. But I found high school teachers for young students, if you think about how students apply to colleges, and that's not everybody, but if you apply to college, you need references and you need a letter of recommendation. And so those people, that's probably the first time a lot of those people are asking for something. And those young people now, it's like, oh, well, it might have been that teacher. It might have been my coach. It might have been an advisor at the Boys and Girls Club. right? Those
Mhm.
are some of those early mentors that you might not know the language yet, but those are people that
Mm.
you can carry with you throughout your career as
Yeah,
what I call the personal board of advisors. Those are people you can have that maybe help you along the way.
I love that board of advisors. Have you heard of the cabinet?
Similar, similar.
Right?
We can't do
Yeah.
this alone. You shouldn't have to do it alone. Transition is hard.
It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think this is like one of the key components that we try to mention in our podcast is don't do this alone, right?
Mm.
Build that bridge, make it easier for you so you can
Yeah.
make it easier for other people around you as well.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I'm thankful about coaching is I think,
Hmm.
while the younger generation is more open about mental health, and I'm
Yes.
so happy for them that they're willing to talk about it and go to therapy. I find
Yes.
some people break through asking for help
Mm.
through coaching, even if it's
Yeah.
an executive coach, right? Because it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like something you should be ashamed of necessarily. Not that
Right.
anybody should, but I
Right.
got an executive coach
Yeah.
feels
Mm.
more like something you brag about. But
Mm.
once people get into my Zoom screen, and I'll
Yep.
say especially guys, the level of
Hmm.
vulnerability is very high.
Yeah.
But I think asking for help is so hard for people that once
It
they
is.
do show up, I do my best to, provide that psychological safety. Everything's
Hmm.
confidential and, help somebody through that process in whatever way they need it.
Right. No, I love that because I think we talked about this in our initial conversation. My background is a therapist.
Mm.
Mhm.
Right? Marriage and family therapy was where I started. And one of the key components that I kept seeing in relationship stressors was financial and professional.
Top
Right?
2. That's it.
Yeah.
Those were the top 2 stress
Yep.
areas I asked in the survey.
Hmm.
Career stress was actually number 1, financial stress was number 2. Those were very close together. But there
Yeah.
are other things that drifted lower for young people, like, there
Hmm.
was some consternation about world events, and I talk
Yep.
about
Mm.
that in the book. There's fear of AI, and I talk about that as a double-edged sword.
Right.
Family stressors, relationship
Oh,
stressors.
yes.
There's a lot of possible stressors, but financial and career were the top 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and this is where I started pivoting from the counseling and therapy side to the career and professional development side because if my goal, and we talked about this, Ian and I, like
Mm.
it's always about helping people grow, right? However I can, wherever I can, and whatever that looks like. So as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking about, you know, the ease of access to coaches. It has become so accessible to have a coach these days. Thankfully, you went through the ICF program, right? I just finished ICF as well. And as I was sitting in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. There's a different level of access and different
Mm.
level of service for people that are seeking support, seeking help, right? But they aren't ready for the therapist,
Mm.
right?
Right. Yeah, you have to lower
And
that friction somehow.
you
Yeah.
do. You do. And as soon as people go and see the benefit of coaching, right?
Yeah.
And the coach is doing a great job, they will start opening up to counseling and
Yeah.
therapy,
Yeah,
working on
different
the
types of help.
previous things, the trauma and all these things. And I love that runway, right? Because Gen Z, as you mentioned, is more forthcoming when it comes to mental health and
Mhm.
getting that mental health support, which I wish our midlife, mid career individuals were also open to. Please be open, right? We are
Yeah.
here to talk about it, right? It's once we can start figuring out the stigma, right? Honestly, everyone's doing this. Everyone's getting help.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you see athletes talking more about it now,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
even, the Olympics just happened, and there's a lot of
mhm,
discussion about that, and so I think it is growing.
it is.
But, I had 2 calls with prospective coaches this week, and these are some of my
Mhm.
favorite calls because, it's like finding more helpers, and I'm not
Yes,
the right coach for everybody, and what you're
right.
looking for, what anybody's looking for might be different, whether that's
Mhm.
race, gender, experience, industry, style, tone,
Right, yeah.
personality,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I don't need 1,000 clients, like, that's not the
No.
deal, and
Yeah,
so we need more coaches like we probably need more therapists and whatever's right for that client at the time. I'm hoping there's more options available, and that's why this coaching community is just the warmest group of people I've ever been part of,
yeah.
and we're referring people to each other constantly.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So I am checking our time. Yeah. I'm curious, as you were going through this book writing journey, right? What is something that you wish you had?
In terms of producing the book or thinking back about my career?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna let you answer it.
I think the second one's more globally interesting,
Okay.
but I'm not sure my answer is any different. I
Mm,
I don't wish I had anything else. I
yeah.
really am thankful for what I have had, what I have
Hmm.
now. I think things happen at the right time for the right reason. And,
Yeah.
to me, I'm blessed. So I don't have any
Yeah.
regrets. I don't have anything I wish I
Yeah.
had. What maybe I think about more is what I wish other people had.
Mm,
Yeah.
And if for some reason I was supposed to be part of that sooner,
Mm,
I wish I knew
mhm.
that sooner, but I didn't. And so
Yeah.
I think I infused some of these tools and skills instinctually as a
Hmm.
people manager. But I think about it now with the coaching skills I have. How would I be a different type of manager? How would I
Yes.
approach performance reviews? How would I
mm,
be coach as manager? So I think
Hmm.
the people managers out there, I would challenge to take one coaching course
Yeah.
and see what you
mm,
can learn about active listening. That I used to think I knew what listening was. I had no idea until you really learn the neuroscience, the psychology, the
Yep.
techniques, right? Coaching is a skill, and I'm still, early on in my career in this.
yeah.
But I think if I had coaching skills as a manager, I could have made an even bigger impact on the
Mhm.
people and possibly the business.
I love that because I was thinking you were gonna say editor because that is usually the painful journey of a
I've
medical.
had a great editor. I'm working with what's called a hybrid publisher this time around.
Oh, good.
I self-published the first book. This time I'm working with Ripples Media, which is a local Atlanta
Mm,
That's great.
purpose-driven publisher, and they've been phenomenally
Yeah.
supportive.
Yeah. I love that. Like, Ian and I, we were talking about having you on and the journey that how you two started meeting
mm,
like few years ago. We're just gonna say a
Mhm,
few years ago,
mhm,
right?
and
And
that.
it's become such a supportive community and conversation, right? Again,
100%.
it takes people to build this community, right? More importantly, it takes people open to having and building a community, right? Because one thing that we always strive towards is how can we make the world 1% better, right? Your books, midlife crisis, right? Quarter life crisis. I hope I'm saying them right. Yeah. Okay. Right. These are some rich text from your personal experience and then your research and the depth of interviews, surveys, right? The anecdotes, and you're seeing your kids jump into this quarter life
Mhm,
stage, right? And you saw yourself in that midlife space, reinventing yourself, right? The stressors of all of that is something that is profound, right? And as we are closing up our episode here, right? I am curious, and I think our listeners are curious, right? What's a takeaway you'd give our listeners who tend to be that mid-career, midlife individuals, and they also have the kids that are Gen Z,
mhm.
right? What could you give to them?
Yeah, I'd say the most important skill I've learned, both in the media industry, running a research division, and being a coach, is asking good questions, asking
So
open-ended
difficult.
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
It takes practice, but if you listen to yourself and how you're approaching your Gen Z child or employee, asking for their opinion, asking, what they think about different things, ask them what might you want to try next versus what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Foster that sense of exploration. And I think there's a
Let's
lot of
pause right there. I'm
opportunity.
gonna pause right there. Sorry, Scott. I gotta cut you off. Go back and repeat their sense of what?
Exploration.
Tell us more what that really means.
Explore. That is in the first book. It's the second phase of the four-phase transition process. But it's dual
Nice.
purpose.
Nice.
Explore
Absolutely.
within yourself, right?
Right.
Yes.
Self-exploration, explore what's out there
Mhm.
and attempt to find an intersection between the two.
Thank you for pausing, because I think it's so important for us to break down exploration because we hear it often. But
Yeah.
oftentimes, like when I used to hear it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm exploring, but I didn't really understand what it meant.
It's changed, if we
Yeah.
talk professionally, we're in the era of the side hustle, the gig
Hmm.
economy. You can have a portfolio career, all that stuff. We didn't have any of that language previously. And
Hmm.
so, you might have your day job, but you might volunteer. You might do something on a weekend. You might, build a new app through vibe coding, right? A lot of this stuff is possible,
Hmm.
but it requires some courage to try something different. And you can do it in private if you want, but experimentation in parallel with maybe where you're feeling stuck or lost,
Hmm.
maybe you plant these seeds that can become something when you need it.
So I have a question. I've known you for many years. I'm asking this question from that standpoint of how do you view yourself now with your coaching as an author versus then when you were in at Turner? How do you view what differences, what similarities do you see within
Mm.
yourself?
Wow, that is deep, Ian. How do I view myself? I don't want to say I look in the mirror that often, but
Right.
I'll try to reflect on how others have told me about
Mm,
my evolution.
fair.
The number one thing is when I launched a coaching business, so many of my former employees, interns, mentees said, "Of course, this is what you're doing."
Mm,
I think they saw it before I did.
mm,
And I do look back at my management style and the assessments I took, and it shows this knack for empowerment, right? Just
mm,
the way I went about things just happens to coincide with the coaching methodologies that are trained.
right.
I didn't know that, nor did I think about it because I had a great career. I
Yeah.
really didn't want to leave when I got laid off. I loved my
Yeah.
job. I loved my managers. And so it just didn't happen until it was supposed to. But I'd say
Right.
they'd say, that part of me was always in me, and
Mm,
now I'm just exploring it more. What's different about me, I think, is really just about how I spend my time.
mm,
When you're in that corporate job, a lot of your time is dictated for you. And now I have the liberty of creating my own schedule most of the time. And so, how I
mm,
divide my time between coaching, teaching, writing, speaking, I'm just happy to say at the end of every year that
yeah.
I'm really happy with how I'm spending my time.
That's great.
That's it.
So you
Love it.
it's funny because the job was dictating you. Because I remember the
At some
stories you would say,
level.
I have to go to you have to go to New York and, and
Sure,
back in the
sure,
same
and
day
and it
and
was all great, like, I don't
yeah,
wanna misspeak, I worked in sports, it was
yeah,
phenomenal. It was a job, and I did have managers, and different managers gave me different levels of autonomy,
Hmm.
but it really did impact my schedule and my
yeah,
time because I was in, like, I was fully
right,
in and joyful about it, but it was my whole time. Like, I
right,
even think about how much time I spend at home now, or availability for my parents or for my kids even though they're away. I would leave home at 7 in the morning
yeah,
and get back at 7 at night. Like, I was gone.
yeah,
And now, I just think about how different that is, and the things I'm able to help with, the people I'm available for. Like, those 12 hours, or when I was traveling even
yeah,
more, I just didn't have that availability.
Yeah.
mm.
All right. Last question, and then we got to close this off. All right. Best sport in the world. What is it?
Best sport?
Best sport.
Well,
Easy
my
question.
I
my true love is still college football. I'm a Michigan
Okay.
Wolverine through and through.
Yeah.
I get most excited. I yell most at my TV.
Love it.
College football is still my favorite, but I will say soccer has grown on me a
mm,
tremendous amount in the last
Mm.
10 years.
Yeah.
There's nuance to it. The schedule can be confusing, understanding the different leagues, the national teams, all that. I'd say soccer globally, I just
mm.
sort of get it more why it's the biggest sport in the world,
Hmm.
but college football still has my heart.
Yin, what about you?
I would say, man, it kind of goes between football and baseball,
Hmm.
professional, because unfortunately, I don't have, I mean, I wasn't born in Georgia, so I wasn't a Braves fan when I grew up. And even though the Braves did practice, had spring training in South Florida, and the Dolphins, I followed for many years as growing up, but then
Yes.
like the deterioration of a team, you're like,
Oh,
"Ah, I don't want to be a fan
so
anymore."
sad.
So it kind of varies, really.
Mm.
It varies based upon sometimes how well or how poorly your team is doing. And am I a fair weather fan? I don't think so, because if you're with a team for like 20 something odd years and they still are like mediocre or terrible, I think that's just that's loyalty to the team, that's loyalty to the sport as a whole. But now I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. So to answer your question, it goes between baseball and football. It really does.
Yeah.
Just depending on maybe the season,
Yeah.
because it's just, Scott is very, very fortunate to have a team that does extremely well year in, year out. Me, I don't have those teams that really have that luxury on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I've got some other teams I didn't mention that make me sad. But
And that's true. That's a
this,
good point.
this
That's sports, exactly. It's sports, and they got their ups
Yeah.
and downs. So I'd say baseball and football, kind of little 1A and 1B action there.
Nice. Nice. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I usually just say go sports.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
Not a big sports fan.
not a big sports fan, but I love the energy.
Mm,
Whenever there's energy involved, like football or soccer as you call it, football has one of the best, biggest energy that I've ever experienced.
mm,
So for me, you go anywhere around the world, you'll see a ball on the field and people are just playing, right?
yeah,
And that is one of my favorite sports because it can become accessible
yeah,
to so many people. So
yeah, yeah.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good
Good
point.
energy, Sim. Good energy.
Exactly.
That's true.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for making the time and
Yes,
sharing
absolutely.
that you are working on a trilogy. I'm not gonna yeah, your first book,
That'll be towards the end of the
Midlife
pod. That'll
Career
be like a
is
teaser.
right, is perfect for those that are in their 40s to 50s, right? Your Quarterlife crisis book is ideal for those in well, it's targeting Gen Z, but probably in their 20s, right?
Mm.
And your next segment is for the my gosh,
I'll
how
call
do
it
you
late life.
There
late
we go.
life.
It's a
Late
sparkle of an idea.
I love
I've
it.
committed to it now publicly, which
Yes.
means I'll figure it out
It's out
later.
there. There you go.
Yes, it will happen, it will happen. You'll put on that, playlist and you'll go
That's right.
for it, right? Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us and sharing that your book is coming or is actually out now. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Alright.
2 down.
Excellent. Excellent.
Congratulations, congratulations. Can't wait to
Thank you for
get
having
my
me.
autographed
Thank
copy.
you. Yes. Thank you
Yeah.
for being a part of this today.
Thanks. All right. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of the conversation. We hope this episode has given you some insight on your journey to a more balanced and fulfilling career. Please find Beyond the 9 to 5, a balanced career on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Thank you for joining us.